That's where the real fun begins. That's where the real fun begins. What? Oh no, I thought you're testing. You got it.
Okay, if everyone can get seated again. I would like to introduce the VP for Governmental Affairs candidates. Each one of you can introduce yourself and do your opening statement. Each of you have 2 minutes, starting with Owen.
All right, thank you everyone for being here and taking the time away from the nice weather today to come and watch this very fun debate. My name is Owen Johansson and I'm running for VP for Governmental Affairs. I'm running because I want to give Western students the best and most affordable education possible. Last quarter, I was an intern for the State House of Representatives in Olympia, and this gave me a really unique experience to work directly for the offices of both Democrats and Republicans to get a good bipartisan base and learn how to look at things from different views and different angles and come up with a good compromise where everyone's happy at the end, which unfortunately happens less often than it should. I learned the system really well. I met with a lot of lobbyists. I understand the lobbying process and I understand what's effective and what needs to be done to get things through. I could probably put insomniacs to sleep with the amount of time I could spend talking about the state legislatures, but the point that I'm trying to make with this is I know how to effectively represent Western students and get our agenda through. We've done a good job in the past. Our school is very well liked by all of our members from this district and the surrounding districts, but there's a lot we can improve on. We do not have the best reputation in some offices. It's going to require a bipartisan effort that we're going to need to work together with some of the representatives that we maybe don't agree with as much. It's time to give Western students the effective representation that they need and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andrew.
Hi, my name is Andrew Taylor, D, which stands for Democrat. I put that on the ballot and I decided to announce that as part of my candidacy because I wanted to be transparent with the students. I'm head of the Western Democrats here on campus and I wanted to make sure that everybody knew where I stood on my values and my plans. That by declaring myself Democrat, I don't mean to exclude other people's values or to exclude anyone because that wouldn't be the role of this office. I want to include everybody, but to know who they're voting for, to know what values they're voting for as well. I think everyone here can agree that we want lower tuition, we want further effective representation in Olympia and everything like that. But I'd also like to encourage us to focus more on our local politics and our county and city politics as well. I'd like us to establish a full-time local liaison position to lobby on behalf of the county council and the city council to deal with issues that we live in this community. Most of us probably live off campus and we probably pay Bellingham taxes and we deal with Bellingham roads and everything like that. And I would like us to have, increased local presence, especially in issues like rental safety, coal terminals being built in our backyard, and other community issues that may arise as the session goes on. I'd also like to continue our voter registration efforts and to actually continue it further and have an increased GOTV effort as well, and to make sure that we have everybody who's registered also voting. As a board member, I would like to encourage us to have a board-wide and AS-wide audit by a management supply chain management student who can look at our supply chain management system and also look at our workflow system and to find some of the areas where we have overlap and redundancies and to improve that as part of the AS as a whole. I'm basically running on a set of ideas and a set of values, and I hope you like them.
Thank you very much. Kaylee.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaylee Galloway, and I am running to be your Vice President for Governmental Affairs. I am a senior here at Western, and I'm doing politics, philosophy, and economics with minors in energy policy and law, diversity, and justice. And I'm recognizing that we as students are facing a dire legislative reality. And what's happening is legislators have failed to adequately fund higher education. We are experiencing absurd tuition increases. Students are graduating with far more debt that has continued to haunt students and will continue to haunt students for many years to come. And students are not being given adequate financial aid. Students are the ones who are being burdened by this. And I believe that it is the role of the Vice President for Governmental Affairs to ignite an influential student movement, to maximize the student influence in the local, state, and federal government, to represent all individuals and all ideologies, and to be inclusive of everyone's interests. It is the role of the Governmental Affairs to organize, to lobby, and to build strong coalitions. While at Western, I have fought for students. I have fought for every single one of you. Over this past year, I have served with the Associated Students as the board assistant for representation committees. This means that I have seen the day-to-day workings of the board office, and I have also contributed to the Legislative Affairs Council, the Green Energy Fee Committee, and the Student Senate. I have also served as an executive board member of the Washington Student Association, and the VP for Governmental Affairs works very closely with the Washington Student Association. I have worked with students from every public college and university in the state of Washington. I understand this organization, I know what it stands for, and I know how to improve it.
Thank you very much. Harrison.
All right, I'm just going to keep this short and sweet. My name's Harrison, and I want to make this a better place.
Okay, thank you very much. The first question that we have for y'all is, how would you promote civic engagement on our campus? We're going to start with Owen.
Okay, so at Western, we have the best voter turnout already of any school in Washington, which is a really, really great start. But we also have a lot of room for improvement, and there's a lot of potential out there to improve our civic engagement. And not just the federal level or the state level, but also the local level. I had the opportunity to help organize a town hall meeting for the 11th district, and I feel like I know that a town hall meeting here with members of our local government, our state government, I've talked to some legislators and they're very open to coming in and meeting with us, and also promoting more of our local issues. I know a lot of people have strong opinions about the coal train. I think if we can continue the dialogue and continue engagement with this issue, which will affect everyone in Bellingham. And there's a problem, I think, with students at Western live at Western. They don't always branch out to the city of Bellingham. I think if we can get some more cohesion between the students of Western and the city of Bellingham, that we can really help promote civic engagement further.
Thank you very much. Andrew.
Okay. I worked on the Obama campaign during the fall, and that taught me a lot about activating sort of the community and sort of this get out the vote effort to get people to volunteer and to get people out in their own community and to go vote and to advocate for voting. So I would bring that experience along with that. I'm also a Western Votes board member, which allows me to know the campus, and also I've participated in many actions here at with Western Votes on campus to help mobilize sort of calls to action to legislators, congresspeople, the governor even. And so I bring with that experience. I also think that another good way to activate civic experience is to bring in local candidates. And so the county council elections are coming up this fall, as well as the city council elections, and bringing those candidates to campus saying, we're 14,000 potential voters here. We could pretty much sway the election either way. Would be an effective way to get candidates to show up and to recognize the values of students and the values of students at Western.
Thank you. Kaylee.
Yes. So one of my premier focuses will be to create a culture of civic engagement on campus. I want this to be a norm and not the exception. Western has experienced so much growth this past year and in previous years. So much growth in the Get Out the Vote efforts and voter registration, and also in our Viking Lobby Day, which this year's Viking Lobby Day was the largest to date. But I believe there is room for improvement. We can continue to grow our efforts and we can continue to expand them. And I have a lot of really wonderful ideas on how to do that. By expanding our Get Out the Vote efforts, we are putting student issues at the table forefront and telling legislators that our voices need to be heard and that we are a voting constituency. We become more powerful and more influential. For Viking Lobby Day, I have set a personal goal to double it. I would like to see over 100 people go down to Olympia and lobby on behalf of all 15,000 students at Western here. These are the ways that we can maximize our student impact. And the way we can do this is by investing in outreach. It is important to invest the time and the resources necessary to make these measures and to ensure that the students' interests are being heard. I believe that organizing a powerful student movement is necessary. It takes all of us. We are all in this together. We are all fighting the same fight. And I think that these are the ways that we can ignite a positive social change on campus.
Thank you very much. Harrison.
Obviously, voter registration is key to getting people involved, and that's just a no-brainer, but it's not enough. We need to also educate the students on the issues and why they matter to them. So this includes letting them know about why these issues affect them specifically. Obviously, one of the biggest issues in this position is getting people registered, but we can't stop there.
Thank you very much. The next question that I have is, what do you think should be our what do you think should be on our legislative agenda? We're going to start with Andrew.
Well, as part of the Legislative Affairs Council, I helped wrote the legislative agenda that we had this year. And so with that experience, I would say that we definitely need to continue to advocate for lower tuition, fully funding financial aid, and fully funding Pell Grants at the national level as well. I also would like to see the inclusion of more environmental protections for next session as well. This session is the budget year, next session is the policy year. So we're going to be dealing with more policy issues next year for sure. And I would like to see more of an inclusion with that and more looking at students' holistic lives as well and the holistic student experience and including that in our legislative agenda.
Thank you. Caleb?
Thank you. So, issue choosing on the legislative agenda is actually not the Vice President for Governmental Affairs' responsibility. It's not about me and it's not about what I think. It's about you, and it's about the 15,000 students here on campus that the Associated Student represents. We need to be more proactive in our issue choosing. We need everyone's interests and ideas and ideologies being included. As somebody who's worked with the Legislative Affairs Council, somebody who's been there for both the state and federal legislative agenda, I believe that each individual council person needs to reach out to more students, needs to engage in dialogue on campus, needs to outreach to clubs. We all need to have our perspectives heard. The Vice President's role on the Legislative Affairs Council and specifically drafting the legislative agenda is to facilitate conversation. It's to provide resources, and it's to encourage others to outreach and to encourage inclusivity, to encourage that we represent all diverse identities and ideologies. And I think this outreach is not only to students, but then to other employees within the Associated Students. So at the end of the day, issue choosing is not about partisanship, because bringing a partisan ideal to the table is basically being non-inclusive to other ideologies. There is a time and a place to be partisan, and this is not it. This is about students, we as a greater population, and we need to work with all sides. Higher education is a common goal. This is something that we can all work together on, and we should work together because power comes with numbers. And the legislative agenda wholeheartedly needs to represent the holistic and diverse nature of the students here at Western.
Thank you very much. Harrison?
Okay, I agree with Kaylee. It's really up to you guys. What are the issues that you care about? But I think definitely one issue that you do care about is tuition, and we need to keep that down. It's growing right now at a ridiculous rate. And so what they're trying to do with the budget is cut funding and have us carry the burden. higher tuition, and that's just not fair. So my legislative agenda would be to keep tuition down in the future and have it grow at a reasonable rate. Right now, it's growing double digits every year, which is just ridiculous. The Student Loan Fairness Act is a good start. That helps students with their debt. But really, in the future, we need to keep the tuition rate from rising at a ridiculous rate that it is right now.
Thank you very much. Owen.
Okay, I'm gonna throw something out here. It's pretty crazy, pretty original. Tuition, all right? Tuition's way too high. Our funding is being cut. It's super obvious stuff. Like, this is what we need to focus all of our attention on. I don't think you could ask any student who would say, oh yeah, keep my tuition going higher. This is what we need to spend most of our effort, most of our time, and most of our resources on, because it's what affects the students the most. There are a lot of really great other initiatives out there and other things that students support. It's also very important, but it needs to come second, because our tuition has, since I've been here for 3 years, I've seen my tuition grow every quarter, and I am tired of it. And I think almost every student that's here is as well. We need a focused, educated, and dedicated lobby effort. We need to make sure we know what we're doing and we know the issues very well, and that we don't just kind of run around and try and support these issues that we don't really understand. We really need to hammer down what we want, which is lower tuition, more funding.
Thank you. And for the last question, how would you improve relations with the Bellingham community? We're going to start with Kayla.
So the Vice President for Governmental Affairs focuses on engaging in dialogue between the associated students and the greater Bellingham community. One thing that I would like to point out is that Western is a part of the community, and the community is also a part of Western, and that in reality we are one and the same. So it is imperative to foster these relationships, to work together as a unified front on the issues that affect all of us. Issues such as the coal terminal and rental safety. These are all issues we all care about. Like Andrew mentioned earlier, the local liaison position is a work study position currently, and it's not filled. And this is a position that would be crucial to expanding our efforts at a local level. And that's why I will be a huge proponent of making it a full-time salary position. The liaison can serve to increase presence at the local government. They can focus on local issues, and they can help further build that bridge between Western and the community. Student involvement at a local level should be a priority, and it will be my goal to follow that through and then to encourage increased engagement on campus.
Thank you. Harrison.
Western actually just received a National Recognition Award for Community Service. I think that's great. Problem is, I don't think really a lot of people know about it. And so, this was through our watershed studies and our Compass to Campus, two of our main organizations, and I think we need to strengthen those. And not only that, but also build upon some more clubs and just get out more in the community and get people to talk about what we're doing in the community. And I think that just talking about it will help a lot.
Thank you very much. Owen.
When I think about the issues that come up to Western students related most to community issues, the two that come to mind are tenant housing relations and police. Students and tenants have had issues in the past, not getting along. We have a very symbiotic relationship, and we need to continue to have good relations there. This is something that will take time to make sure everyone is on the same page, but it's definitely a very feasible objective. And also police relations with students. I don't know if any people in this room have had issues at times with police officers, but as a student, at times I've personally not held the Bellingham Police Department in the highest regards. I think that if we can communicate with them better and really understand what the laws are, and really figure out a way to get along better, because students are going to get rowdy sometimes, but we need to be able to get past that and form a good relationship with the police.
Thank you very much. Andrew.
Like I said in my opening statement, a local liaison position, making that full-time, making sure that we're listening to the concerns of students in the local Bellingham community, and also the Whatcom County community as well. We live in Whatcom County, and we also have students who commute from Skagit County, so we should be paying close attention to those issues as well. Also working with the WTA, making sure service is fully functioning and fully accessible to students at all times, and making sure that the right routes are being good, and that we advocate for more energy efficient transportation and more better alternate transportation, something that I would chair if be elected to this position in those committees as well. And just making sure that we're staying tuned, and that the local community knows that Western does exist, and that we are very vocal, and that we do have issues and have convictions that we'll act on.
Thank you very much. Audience participation time. Who has questions? See if I have Eileen.
So part of the job description is to participate in the Washington Student Association, to attend their meetings, to represent the Western student body with the state organization, which has already been brought up. And Western has built this really phenomenal reputation of being progressive, of standing up for students as more than just a tuition issue, but looking at students as, a full person, and really coming out ahead on a lot of issues, to encourage the entire state to look at students holistically, and we've kind of been this outstanding voice in that organization. And I'm wondering how you guys can continue that legacy, and how you plan on working with the WSA and maybe getting more students involved in the organization.
We're going to start with Harrison.
Okay. As you guys can probably tell by now, I don't like to beat around the bush. So, yeah, I love working with people, have my whole life, and I just like to get to the point. And I think that's really important when you're working with a group of people. Is you can't get a lot done if you're just, beating around the bush and just not doing anything. So what I would do to continue that is really just work hard and show my leadership in that organization.
Okay, thank you. Ole?
The WSA has done a lot of really, really good things for the legislator. It's been a great voice for the students of Washington, and it has been around and been there throughout the entire process. It's always around, and it's always getting in there and talking to legislators. One thing that I will want to do to improve on that and to continue the legacy is to really focus on improving relations with the Senate Majority Coalition Caucus. They are at odds with the House Democrats over what things need to go through, and nothing is going to get passed if it does not go through the Senate and is approved by their coalition. And this needs to happen if we want to see results at any point on any issues that we believe in.
Thank you. Andrew?
I always like to say Western leads the way when it comes to going forward with ideas and going forward with ideas of progressive values and for advocating for values that Western holds and to spread them across the state. Definitely looking at it from a holistic perspective, branching out to other issues for various amounts to students, advocating for, say, the Women's Reproductive Parity Act or any environmental issues or things of that nature should be expanded into the WSA, and we should be very mindful of that, and we should also stand to our progressive values and our convictions here at Western that we've championed for at the WSA as well.
Thank you. Taylor?
Thank you so much for asking this question. The Washington Student Association is something I'm extremely passionate about. I have, like I said, mentioned earlier, I have served on the executive board of the Washington Student Association this past year as the vice president for communications, and it's been something that I've been extremely passionate about. So I have lots of really wonderful ideas in this regard. Having been to every single Washington Student Association meeting this year and a few even last year, I have a great idea of the students who participate and the things that the Washington Student Association advocates for, and all the wonderful advocacy efforts that we put forth. So yes, we do have a reputation of being a very progressive group. We provide a wonderful, wonderful point of view, and we've educated a lot of other schools. We, for example, were huge proponents of the DREAM Act. We were the ones that got that item on our legislative agenda, and it ended up being one of the most successful issues that the WSA pushed for. To continue our growth with WSA, I think one of the biggest things we can currently work on is expanding our chapter growth. So Western Votes is actually our chapter of the Washington Student Association, and is a wonderful organization. I've been a member of Western Votes for this past year as well. And we have one of the strongest chapters. But I think we can have a stronger chapter, and I think we can improve our chapter influence at the Board of Directors meeting. Like, I'd be a huge proponent of that. And also, I think the Washington Student Association is looking at expanding its staff and looking at expanding our efforts. For example, this year we held the largest voter registration drive ever. And Western Washington University led the way in those efforts. And so expanding our efforts to include maybe a more proactive approach to policy making, ensuring that the student issues are being included in the policy. It's a great opportunity to network with others, and I will also be pushing for a greater network with the United States Student Association, which I had the wonderful opportunity to go to the legislative conference. So these are all ways that we can continue to grow our relationship with the Washington Student Association.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Neil?
How should the associated students be lobbying? Lobbying. How should we lobby?
Be lobby.
Actually, we already started.
Okay. How should we be lobbying? First, I'd like to start off and say that new progressive ideas are great. They're very good things, but if they're not going to succeed and not going to go anywhere, then it kind of takes the air out of how great these ideas are. Like the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act was incredibly successful, but unfortunately it did not pass. It failed in the Senate because we could not get it through the Higher Education Committee. That's where I plan on focusing most of my attention, is being in the office of Senator Barbara Bailey, who's the chair, and telling her, this is what we want to happen. What do we have to do to get there? There's a misconception of a lot of people at Western, of Republicans just in general, that they, on an issue of higher education, that they would say, higher education, we don't care. But if you go up and ask a Republican, hey, do you want affordable, quality higher education? They're going to say, of course, and here's how I think we should get there. Everyone wants the same thing. It's just finding a way to come together and get the best plan and the best strategy to get there. And focusing on the Senate Republicans who have been blocking a lot of the progressive higher education bills, higher education bills and higher education ideas. That's where I'm going to focus most of my attention on.
Thank you. Andrew?
I think the personal story of each and every one of us here has definitely been very powerful in terms of our lobbying efforts, our testimony, our personal appeals to each of our individual stories. I'm a GET student, so I advocated for that while I was in Olympia a couple times actually as well. And so keeping up with reminding legislators that we are people and that we have our own stories and we have our own struggles and that they should be recognizing that. I also would like to say we don't get what we don't ask for. So we have to make sure we take those bold stances and we ask for things that even if we don't think we're going to get, we start out the negotiating table from there. And so we definitely have to ask for more, for whatever we think we want.
Thank you. Kaylee?
Awesome. So first off, lobbying is a very, very effective way to getting our message across. And I believe that lobbying happens at a local, state, and federal level, and that it would be in our best interest to strengthen our efforts in all three areas. So the one way to increase our influence is by getting more students to lobby. Lobbying is a scary word. We all think of those big rich corporations that go up in front of Congress and testify. Yes, in some respects, but we are students and we can lobby too. Everyone can lobby because we are all experts of our own story and our own issues and the issues that affect us every day. So one of my goals, like I said earlier, is to double the size of Lobby Day. I would love a triple-digit student involvement with Lobby Day, and reaching out to students of individuals of diverse identities. And one way I hope to do this is to work closely with the Vice President for Diversity and increasing representation through the Students of Color Dinner, which was a brand new thing that we put on this year. It was a wonderful event. And another thing we attempted to do this year was to lobby on a smaller scale. So instead of doing one big Viking Lobby Day, doing a series of smaller lobby trips. This is something that can be approved upon because it's a wonderful idea. And one idea that I've set forth is reaching out to more clubs. So for example, there are a myriad of environmental clubs on campus. Let's rally them all together. Let's work with the VP for Student Life, and let's get all those clubs together and all those individuals together to lobby on environmental issues. These are all things that we're capable of, and these are all ways that we can improve our influence on the state legislature. So not only are we focusing on issues pertaining to higher education, tuition and debt and funding, etc., but we are also focusing on our values-based agenda, issues that include the environment, issues that include faculty relations, and all these other wonderful things that we all stand for. So that would be my effort in the lobbying, and of course through the federal level as well, and increasing our involvement with the USSA. The United States Student Association can help strengthen our federal lobbying efforts as well.
Thank you. Harrison.
We need to be lobbying with a ton more involvement. Lobby Days is a great thing that we have here, and we do need more involvement in that. That's a huge part of our system, and it really goes a long way in showing politicians how much we care. We just need to keep bugging them, show them that we really care about these issues and that we're not going away.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have time for one more question. Oh God, there's so many. Dang.
My question is about this position work with vice presidents for diversity and take stand sometime. What issues would you take stand and what issues would you not take stand?
We're starting with Andrew.
I definitely take a stance on issues. My dad said, because he's a professor down at Shoreline Community College, he said he always opens the class with, if I don't have an opinion, I'm not paying attention. So pretty much on every issue, I would try to take a stance. I would take into account the student's perspective. I would take into account my own perspective, balance those out, and take a stance on it. In reference to the environmental lobby trip, which I led that on, I took Eddie over here. He's sitting in the back corner. By the way, you should also vote for the divestment initiative on the ballot. That's very important. Do it. But definitely taking a stance on issues is something that I'm not afraid to do, and I'm not afraid to be challenged on.
Thank you very much. Caleb.
Yes, so I do also believe that taking a stance, there's a definite time and place where a stance needs to be taken. But as somebody who has focused on interdisciplinary studies and kind of getting a myriad of different subjects in my education, I have recognized the importance of hearing all sides to every story and to considering all sides of an argument before any stances are taken. We've experienced issues in among our groups of friends and among the AS where we have had differing opinions. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's something we need to encourage. I think having that dialogue and those conversations are a wonderful opportunity to educate everyone and to just really expand our own knowledge. So yes, but with dialogue. And what I mean by that is we need to be engaging in those conversations. We need to be outreaching to students on these issues because it's the students that are affected. I think one way that we can really enhance our efforts in researching topics is really utilizing the knowledge that our legislative liaison will have down in Olympia. So the legislative liaison spends all of winter quarter lobbying on behalf of all students in Olympia. That individual knows what's going on, what's politically feasible, and that individual can provide wonderful insight to all of us and seeing what Western should be doing or how Western should be influential. Now, another wonderful thing too is in fostering or continuing to foster our relationships with administration. There are times where issues are going to affect both students and administration, and in those cases it's really important to engage in those conversations with faculty and with administration, because if we can come together as a unified front, that is going to be the most powerful message. And so I encourage all of us to do all of our research before we take a stance. And at the end of the day, taking that stance can mean a really powerful thing.
Thank you very much. Eric.
I'm a very opinionated person, and one of the things that I love to do is just have conversations with people and see why they disagree with me or what their side of the story is. And so, even if the issue doesn't even appear to directly affect the students or the university, there always is underlying issues that may affect us. And so what I would like to do is just have conversations with people and really understand better issues and how they affect us as a university.
Thank you very much. Oh.
My plan is to keep the focus more directly on higher education issues. And thankfully, there are several higher education issues that deal with diversity. The first is differential tuition. And I'm glad I get to bring this up because this is an issue that's going to be facing all of us very soon. This would increase the cost of specific majors, which would deter students from coming here if they want to take this major or from deciding to choose this major. This will decrease diversity of knowledge and diversity of what kind of students we have here. Also, there is a proposed foreign student tuition increase, which I think is just completely unacceptable, to increase our tuition on foreign students, which is supported by Senator Bailey, and I really can't stress this enough. We really need to improve our relations with Senator Bailey. I hate to come right back to this, but if we don't improve these relations, then nothing that we want is going to get done. I had a quick little anecdote. I had a friend who was working in her office, and he came up to me one day and he said, "Oh, you're from Western, right? I hate Western." We flooded her office with about 100 calls of people reading off papers and saying, I'm sorry, I'm reading this off of paper. I don't know what I'm doing. Our lobbying effort needs to be more focused and educated on these issues. And if we want to get anything done, let's be friends with Senator Bailey. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have time for one more question. Okay, you.
Thank you.
I thought we were friends, Jared.
Can we do two?
You get to ask the question.
Awesome. Okay, so in listening to each of you individually, it sounds like you each have a lot of experience with politics outside of the Western community, which is great. And it's awesome to hear about that. But I want to know, as a student, how you're actually going to utilize your experience with outside politics to make the changes that you claim you're going to change. Because while it's great listening to your experience, honestly what's more important to me is how that's going to affect the decisions you make, which will in return affect me and all my peers.
We're going to start with Kaylee.
Sorry, so I just want to clarify the question you're asking. You're asking me how I can utilize my experience to
make the decisions that you claim you're going to make about rising tuition costs. How are your experiences actually going to help you do that?
Yeah. In the past, so last budget season, we experienced a no-cut budget, and that was something that was extremely wonderful job, well done. And one of the things that the group did was more organization, stronger organizing efforts. So more emails sent, more phone calls made. And I know that Owen mentioned that Barbara Bailey didn't like the phone calls, but it shows her that we actually care enough to make the phone call and to actually get our name on her radar. So for me, that's actually kind of a positive thing. Now, not making her mad, that's another thing. We need to focus on improving that. But it's all about the organization. And so I have a lot of experience with organization through Western Votes, but then also through the Washington Student Association, and taking that knowledge and directly applying it to increasing our organizing efforts here on campus. So that could include rallies on campus. That include more days of action. That includes maybe outreaching to more students to participate in Western Votes. Another component is lobbying. I have experience with lobbying on a state and federal level. I've taken part in both 2 Viking lobby days where I group led one, and it was a wonderful experience. And so outreaching to other individuals. And I really think at the end of the day, it's power in numbers, and that we all are students and we're all fighting the same fight. And so at the end of the day, it's just a matter of rallying us all together and fighting the student movement. getting hundreds of students together and saying, this is enough. We are tired of the lack of funding, the increase in tuition, and those experiences can be directly related and directly affected and included.
Thank you. Harrison?
I actually don't have very much outside politics experience, but I love organizing people, and to think that this is a one-man job would be foolish. So one thing that I would do is get people involved, get the students involved. This is not just me. I'm not just the lone ranger here trying to go out and lobby for Western. It would be more me getting involved as kind of the organizer of students, getting people out there to lobby for me. And obviously I would be with them, but getting them involved would be more of a achievement for me.
Thank you.
So I think, just let me nail down exactly what you're asking. You're asking how we can really take what the students want, how we're going to do that, and the methods that we're going to use. Is that
Yeah, and
the
based
question?
off your experience with whatever you've done with politics in the
Okay.
past.
Well, I think first it all starts with figuring out what our students want. And a good way to do that is meeting with clubs and having open meetings and open discussions for students to come and discuss things that they have on their minds and issues they see going through different departments, different academic departments. We need to find out exactly where they stand on issues, and sports teams, all these big groups, and then coming together and deciding what do we share in interests. And I think it comes back to tuition and improved funding. And how we're gonna do that is like Kaylee said, it showed, like the phone calls, it shows we care, but there are other ways to show we care that don't look quite as unprofessional and are much more effective. Having our liaison very well rehearsed and understanding these issues backward and front, and making sure everyone that we say, this is someone who represents Western in a lobbying function, knows what they're doing and knows what the issues are and knows why we stand for them. I hope that answers your question. Thanks.
Thank you. Andrew?
So during my time on the Obama campaign, I learned a lot about community organizing, voter registration, get out the vote efforts, and just recruiting volunteers in general. And so I translate that experience into recruiting for volunteers for Lobby Day, for Western Votes, for our voter registration drive, for our GOTV drive in the fall. For advocacy, I've been a member of Western Votes, and I've also lobbied on behalf of the Washington Democrats as well in Olympia, and I also took an environmental lobby trip. So I have a wide range of issues that I've lobbied on before, and I would translate that experience into educating others about my lobby experience and try and translate to their own personal stories and everything like that. As far as on-campus issues, I've worked on plenty of resolutions, including advocating for a neutral area for unionization for the Airmark workers on campus, and that passed, and we advocated for a neutral understanding between workers, and they were able to unionize in a non-violent sort of way. I've advocated for rental safety, which then the board passed, and then we advocated for increased rental safety issues this year. I'd like to continue that into next year, and rental safety is a big issue for me, and I'd like to definitely continue that. I also went to the USSA LegCon as well with Kaylee, and I would like to translate that into our federal agenda shaping and to participate in national days of action with congressional people and also Senate folks as well. I have a history of action, and I will continue that history of action and doing more action if elected to this position.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you all for participating in the forum.
Come here.
Good job.
Break. We'll be back in about 5 minutes.
Good job.
Good job.